stage, we want to thank the PTA for sponsoring this event. And Laurie Haber is a parent of Ross Haber, who went to school here and graduated from Rosemary Kennedy a number of years ago. And Laurie has written a book about her experience as a parent of a child with autism. And I think it's a wonderful perspective for all of us as professionals, because we work every day in a school setting, but it's so good to hear what's happening at home and what parents experience. So without any further ado, I am going to turn the presentation over to Laurie Haber. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that introduction, and good morning, and it's nice to be back. Thank you to Principals Bonnie Heller and Matt Zekers for asking me to speak about my book, Raising Ross. It's all about the love for our autistic son. Raising Ross is about the challenges involved in raising a child with autism. It is my family's story of our ups and downs throughout Ross's upbringing. It's raw, it's real, it's truthful, it is not sugar-coated. It's about Ross's diagnosis, our stages of denial, grief, acceptance, and action. It's about the community that helped lift us up. It's about the angels who helped Ross and our family to overcome the struggles. It's about the professionals, caretakers, community, family, and friends who have been there for us every step of the way. It's uplifting and, I hope, inspiring. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined writing a book. I am much more of a spreadsheet kind of gal. But my mom told me to write a book to share my experiences with other families, and I reluctantly accepted the challenge. I went out of my comfort zone, and with the help of my co-author, Linda Pedrera, we got it done. I'm very proud of the end result, a book that combines a personal story with practical advice. As one friend said to me, how many books do both? I'll give you a brief summary of Ross's early years. He was diagnosed with ADHD and severe language delay at age 2. It wasn't until many years later that we were given a diagnosis of autism. We started early intervention at home with a speech therapist. After a few sessions, she said to me, Ross needs to be in a school-based setting because he was too distractible. He was in a special ed school from age 2 to 21 and received speech therapy every day. He attended Rosemary Kennedy School for 13 wonderful years from age 8 to 21. When Ross was aging out of school at age 21, I needed to put my career on hold. I researched every day HAB program on Long Island, and after a tremendous amount of time and energy, I was able to get him settled into a program called the Center for Developmental Disabilities. That same year, another parent and I started a family association at the day HAB. We do all the fundraising for much needed supplies, such as iPads and smart boards, and we advocate for our loved ones. Ross has limited language and difficulty enunciating. He uses visuals as he does not read or write. He needs structure, routine, positive reinforcement, and motivators. The iPad has been our salvation because it keeps him busy and engaged. He was never able to concentrate on anything for more than a few minutes before he got his hands on an iPad. There are apps especially geared towards the autistic community, such as the symbol-based program Proloquo to Go. I'd like to read an excerpt from chapter 14 called Angels in Our Midst. Kathy was Ross's teacher at Rosemary Kennedy. She was so instrumental in teaching me tough love, a concept I struggled with in my heart, even though my head told me she was absolutely correct. She urged me to allow Ross to try and fail on his own instead of jumping in to rescue him all the time. Ross learned so much from her. His ADL skills improved tremendously because she continually pushed him to be more independent. She was a beloved teacher, which is why each year I made a written request to keep Kathy as Ross's teacher. After 2 years with Kathy, my wish was not granted for a third time. I was upset at first, but soon discovered that there were other fabulous teachers at the program. That is what happened when Ross was assigned to Mary's class, a life changer, an angel as well. But I will always recall Kathy and her angelic determination to spur my son onward. Mary. Change of any kind presents a challenge to most of us, be it a change of residence, a change of job, a change of circumstance, or a change of life. In the special needs world, the specific term for change is transition, and it arouses a great deal of anxiety in both the parent and the child alike. There are scheduled meetings and reviews that begin to take place during the year the child turns 15, and they continue on an annual basis until the child's 21st birthday. These are years that are riddled with stress and other emotions, including the most prevalent of them all, fear. For the parents, the fear is founded upon the fact that they must now find a new place for their son or daughter, just when they were finally feeling secure in their current program. For the children themselves, it is more of a primal reaction. They sense the surrounding tension and they respond accordingly. Ross was no different. He was never able to easily separate from us and did not handle change well. I was feeling just as anguished over this next step. I knew through both experience and instinct that he would not voluntarily enter the new day camp building for his interview. So I asked his school teacher, Mary, if she could come up with a strategy. She asked the principal for permission to take Ross's entire class on a field trip to the day camp facility. I will always remember how she managed to find a way to help us. Her resourcefulness allowed Ross to walk without resistance into this unfamiliar place for his required interview. She even photographed the new staff and building to collect into a visual, laminated book to familiarize Ross with his next place. This was a helpful tool to prepare him for the transition from school days to the over 21 environment. Mary was Ross's angel as his wonderful teacher for his final 2 years at Rosemary Kennedy School, and she was also instrumental in making him feel more secure at his future program through her initiative and expertise. I have met numerous angels in my travels with Ross. In my experience, I have found that they show up when you least expect them. But perhaps it's just our prayers being answered. Keep your eyes, ears, and mind open, because good people do exist. In fact, our special children often bring out the best in all of us. I cannot stress enough the importance of the professionals in our lives who have made up Team Ross over the years. The angels include Ross's teachers, his teachers' aides, social workers, psychologists, therapists, and recently the support staff at his adult day program. Now I want to talk about the family's experience and what it is like to raise a child with autism. It's important to understand how parents, siblings, and all family members are impacted by a child with special needs. First, the siblings. Ross's brother Adam is 3 years younger than him. Growing up, there were many challenging times for Adam because we didn't have a minute to pay attention to him. He started acting out when he was younger because his role model, his older brother, was demonstrating inappropriate behaviors. Adam figured it would get him the attention he was craving, albeit negative attention. Thankfully, Adam matured quickly and settled down once he was old enough to understand Ross's issues. He ultimately became a very compassionate young man and is very proud of his older brother. For more details, you can read the chapter on Adam, as well as the section on the family dynamic. My husband Don wrote a chapter because I felt it was important to get his perspective. He discusses his experiences, his coping mechanisms, and how having a child with autism has affected his life. He begins with a poem he wrote back in 1994. after learning of Ross's diagnosis. As much as I'd like to read it to you, I can't because I get too choked up. I will, however, read from my last section called A Lifetime of Experience. It is 4 a.m. and I have been up with Ross for a few hours. As I sit with him, I'm reviewing the final draft of Raising Ross. 27 years have passed and some things have stayed exactly the same. The sleepless nights, the ceaseless interruptions, and a multitude of large mugs filled to the brim with strong coffee. However, so much has changed. Ross has grown into a beautiful, personable young man who brings us joy every day, and we are thankful for that. Yes, he continues to struggle with many daily challenges and requires constant care and attention. His behavior remains the biggest obstacle, getting more and more difficult to control as he gets bigger. Yet, I have found that same methodology, that same obstacle to be a reason for me to develop my own methodology going forward. Autism is no longer the fearful specter looming in the shadows, I'm happy to say. Around my neck, I wear a symbolic puzzle piece to remind me where Ross started and how far he has come, in much the same way that views on autism have evolved since his first diagnosis. This icon is now very familiar to the public, and as such, is recognized by strangers who often ask me how I have been touched by autism. It is not only a way of connecting with people who are affected by the disability, but also a badge of honor for me. Most importantly, it embodies the inner strength I need every day to be a mom of an autistic young man. I wrote this book to share my experiences raising a special needs child and what I learned along the way. It has been therapeutic for me to relive these memories. They were chaotic and emotionally exhausting times. It has not always been an easy process, but there are so many heartwarming and uplifting moments. My hope is that, in writing about my struggles and triumphs, in some way I can help other families. If I can achieve that goal, then this endeavor has been worthwhile. In short, I tell my story to you, the reader, to show that you are not alone. Please reach out to your support system to help you cope, to family, friends, and your community. You have more people willing to listen, sympathize, and take action with you than you can ever imagine. Over the years, people have asked me, Laurie, how can we help you? What can we do for you? My answer is simple. Interact with my son, play with him, engage him. He will respond to you. Take him from me for a few minutes to give me a break. That's what parents of autistic kids need most of all. A breather from the stressful daily routine. And of course, treat him with respect and kindness and include him. Be patient and tolerant of the behaviors that he cannot control. Embrace him, and I mean that literally. Accept him, understand him, and most importantly, love him. As professionals working with children and young adults with developmental disabilities, you are an essential, integral part of teams improving the lives of your students. As a parent, I want to thank you for choosing this career and for the important work you are doing. Thank you. So we have some time for questions. If anyone has a question for me, happy to address it. Another mic. You have a mic, great.
So we want to thank you again for coming. Thank you so much for your presentation, for sharing with us. I do have a microphone if anyone has any questions or just comments, or if you want to just say thanks to Laurie for being here.
So if there aren't any questions right now, I would like to bring up a question that has been posed to me in previous speaking engagements. People have asked me, what is the most difficult chapter to write. What was the most difficult chapter to write in the book? It was not easy to write the book, but I felt that it was important to get the word out and important for parents to know they're not alone and to have a resource guide, and also for people to understand what it's like. And I would say the toughest chapter was a chapter called Ross Unfiltered. Ross Unfiltered is from Ross's perspective. It's what I thought he would want you to know, what I thought he would want the readers to know about his point of view and how he's feeling and what he's experiencing. Now, he has limited language, he doesn't read or write, but I felt that I know him best and I would like to convey what he's experiencing as I see it. So he expresses his appreciation for everyone, for his help, for his family, how much love he has for his family, for his brother. And I try to convey the confusion and the sensory overload that he's experiencing. So that was as a result of my co-author, and that is the benefit of having a co-author, because you have another perspective and you have input and you have someone giving you feedback. And she was instrumental in getting that chapter out of me. I would never have addressed Ross Unfiltered. I would never have included his perspective if it wasn't for her. And she said, you need to make this book whole. You need to write about what he's feeling and what he's experiencing. So I would say that that's the chapter that I'm most proud of and was most difficult to get on paper. Any questions?